Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this session, and we welcome you all to this knowledge session on startups featuring Mr. I can say CA Harsh Parikh. So thank you so much, Harsh. Thank you and welcome on our session, knowledge session on startups. So it's really great, and we're all looking forward to conversing with you to know more about your journey as a CA, as an MBA, as an investment banker, and today as an entrepreneur, as a founder. Yeah. So before I say anything, before I share anything, I'll like to introduce myself. I'm Lakshay, and I'm one of the co-founders of Charterpreneur. And maybe we can know more from Harsh about himself. So Harsh, please feel free to share a brief about your yourself and your CA journey. How did you enter the profession? Thank you.
So I'm Harsh Parikh, chartered accountant. Passed out the attempt of November 2003. So in a very, very different era. How I got into CA, it's a very boring story. Because back in when we had to make career choices back in the year 99, 2000, there wasn't much for a commerce graduate to actually chase. A lot of courses such as CFA, MBA, the work started only after your graduation. BCom didn't hold as much value. In fact, BMS had just started. In fact, I can actually say my year of college was the first year when Mumbai University introduced BMS. So, so it was like, I would say, thoda bahut herd mentality tha. Ye sab kar rahe hain, to let's give it a crack. Why not? I was good at numbers. So it was actually simply that. Part of me, when I see the generation today, the kind of options you guys have does make me jealous. Unfortunately, the way the story began, audit bored me a lot. I somehow could not see myself doing audit for the rest of my life. That I knew very, very early on. But karna to tha, CA pass karna tha, so we had to do what we had to do. And tax was again something which interested me. I enjoyed it, but did I see myself doing it year in, year out? Probably not. I would blame a little bit of this to a lack of exposure, because for whatever reason, conservative as I am, I chose to do my articleship with a small firm. I didn't even attempt a big four, because smaller firms are generally more liberal in giving leaves, study leaves, time, which larger firms are not. And I'm like, it's good to have a strong, solid bullet point like an KPMG or a PwC on a resume. But agar CA pass nahi hoga to kya? What's the point of having those bullet points, right? So so that was the choice I made. And the flip side was you don't get exposure to some of these larger career options, which any big four or a large firm will give you. I was doing a lot of retail tax, if you can call it that. And retail and SME taxation was where I spent a lot of my time, not corporate taxation and M&A structuring, for example. So that was that. And then anyways, in those days, so to give you a background how life for a CA student was back in early 2000s, you gave your 12th standard, passed it, and you enrolled for the foundation course. You do the foundation course for a year. And then you start, if you clear the foundation a year after that, then along with your second year BCom, you start your internship and preparation for your inter-CA. The inter-CA exam will be held 1.5 years later. So in the November of your TY BCom. So at a point in time, if your college is hard pressed on attendance, you have to attend college, then do your internship, then do your classes if anybody's enrolled for it. And then whatever time you get left, you eat, sleep, and get ready for work. So, so I never had a college life. So I still wanted that. And I was a little lucky that at least the situation at home was not one where I had to start work immediately. ठीक है, 2 साल अगर बच्चा और पढ़ लेगा, कोई tension नहीं है. So that's what the बच्चा did. He gave a crack at MBA and I was lucky, got into IIM Bangalore. So I just extended my articleships by a few months. And then June of 2004, I was off to Bangalore.
Okay.
2 years in Bangalore, and campus placement happened at the investment banking team at Merrill Lynch. Was there for nearly 10 years, got out late end of 2015. And with the idea that Briefcase shuru karenge. It again, something that I feel a little jealous of is that experiments were frowned upon on a resume. Failed, or rather, let me correct myself. Failed experiments were frowned upon a resume back in 2005, 6, 7, 8. Arey, iska to dhanda fail gaya. Nahi. Why would I want to hire him? Today, it's a different story. So in 2015, when Sohit and I had a thought कि कुछ करते हैं, यहाँ से निकलते हैं, अपना करते हैं. We knew that if it doesn't do as well as we think it will, even if we want to come back to mainstream jobs, this will be something that won't make us lose years.
Correct.
So that's been the journey.
This I think learning we can have. So all of us here, like most of us are either CAs or CA students, either working or studying or doing our articleships. So I believe one thing that you said, that even if the startup idea that you're pursuing, even if the venture that you're launching, even if it doesn't work as expected, you have something to fall back upon, which is an added advantage that we all as CAs or as professionals we would have, right? So that's it. Okay. So, but in one of your interviews, I heard that you were not a very padhaku child. And how were you able to gather that courage to be able to study again after CA? Because again, CA course is not an easy one. It's not like anyone can do it. So how were you able to again sit to prepare for CAT and then appear for it and then maybe study for 2 years at IIMB?
So that's exactly why it happened, right? Because for some reason my hours input in actual academics was relatively low.
Okay.
In terms of study time once my classes got done. And second, the motivation to take up the MBA was not knowledge. Sorry, this doesn't sound very good, but that was actually not my real motivation. It's not that I felt कि अरे मुझे ये degree करनी है या मुझे investment banker बनना है, therefore I want to get into. I didn't even know what investment banking was till I joined IIM Bangalore. मुझे पता भी नहीं था कि वो लोग करते क्या हैं. I had no clue. I come from, my background is, my dad had a business of its own. Most people I knew back in 2004 were into some form of business or the other. So the whole exposure on the corporate side was very, very limited. And as I told you, my articleship also happened in a small business. So wahan pe bhi the exposure was very SME related. It's not that I had an uncle who worked for some big bank and some friend's father who's some CEO of some BSCT 100 company or something of that sort. वैसा कुछ था नहीं.
Right.
So a lot of exposure for me started coming in once I joined IIM Bangalore, not before that.
Okay.
So the driver for me to do my MBA was not academic. It was actually key hostel life जीनी है, because I worked from home for my CA. Everything was close by. College was close by. Office was close by. I never really had to commute a lot other than for audits. And so for me, the motivation was different.
Okay.
Having said that, there is a massive difference in the pedagogy of CA versus MBA. And now, especially in the age of Udemy and in the age of stock and in the age of that upgrade, a lot of times this question gets asked to me, do you even see doing an MBA is relevant? For commerce students and chartered accountants, it is very, very relevant. Okay.
So that was, in fact, my next question that I wanted to ask you, but then please go ahead. Yeah.
The thing is, and I'm sorry, I'm being a little critical, and please, if anybody wants to correct me, because my knowledge of CA is at least 5 years old till someone I know very close enough graduated, but it is, you're studying under a shell. You are doing your internship, which is one part, but it's not that your performance at the internship has any bearing whatsoever on your degree. You could be the worst article in the history of, say, KPMG, and that has no bearing on how your grading will happen for your results. It's entirely based on those papers you write over that span of that 1 week. And your scoring is also absolute. It is in some degree relative, because there is a control on the number of people that pass out. But in your head, it is absolute. That, yeah, costing ka paper hai, 40 lane hai. And I used to run those calculations all the time. Okay, if I have to get 40 marks, this is the syllabus, and marginal costing ka paper, ek sawal aata hi hai, iska ek sawal aata hi hai. How is it that how is it that I can attempt 80 and manage 40? Or should I study where I can attempt 100 and then not have the quality in answers? Those kind of calculations you run, and it is possible to game the system. And if you get 45, you are home, or you get 50, you are home. Ho gaye, marks mil gaye. It doesn't matter that the guy next to you got 52 and the one next to him got 60 and the one next to him got 65. But that's not how life works. In life, you're always competing, which CA never teaches you. Competition kis prani ka naam hai is taught to the engineers. A question comes in, why is it that engineers do so well? Because if you look at these IITs, you look at the engineering, the better engineering colleges around, the grading is relative. I think now commerce colleges have started relative grading. But anyways, it's not aspirated. Nobody aspires to top BCom, right? Koi mehnat karta bhi nahi hai waise.
Correct.
But people do wish to top an IIT, and they are competing against each other. The entire class could get 95 out of 100, but they are useless if even one of them gets 96 and 97. Then the 95 holds no value, right? That's what real life is. Eventually, you will win if you are the best. Nobody cares for the also rans and the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth, really speaking. Right? When you have like you could do really, really well, but someone did marginally better and he got promoted, you did not. It's not this whole business of giving consolation marks, ke acha theek hai, attempt ke marks de do. Life doesn't give you marks for attempts. You have a good product, you'll be able to sell it. You have a bad product, it won't sell. ऐसा नहीं है कि customer बोलेगा कि हाँ ठीक है 20 रुपए ऐसे ही ले ले consolation के. कोई customer ऐसा आके नहीं बोलता ना. Either he buys your product or he doesn't.
Right. Real taste of competition you had at your B school, right? In those 2 years.
Correct.
Okay. I got
because it. You think कि अरे मुझे तो अच्छे marks लाने,
right.
And you would be very happy about it. But it doesn't work that way in a B school. So what happens is, and this is the other thing that I learned there, it is very important to understand what kind of people you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
At an IIM Bangalore, I was fortunate enough कि अपने तो you think हम तो चौधरी है, right? कि यार मैंने CA पास किया है, okay, second attempt में पास किया, but CA पास किया है, मेहनत नहीं पड़ी, ये वो, I'm a chartered accountant. बाजू वाला IIT टॉपर है, कोई स्टीफन से दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी टॉप करके आया है. Someone's a Berkeley graduate, undergraduate, and now has moved back to India.
Okay.
You are just one amongst many. Every 180 के batch था, I am sure 150 had topped something or the other.
Okay.
किसी ने मेंसा क्रैक किया हुआ है, कोई IIT JEE में इंडिया रैंक 5 लेकर आया था. It's so you are just another topper. So it's an amazing. It was like, I will not cut it. I'll be honest when I tell you कि थप्पड़ पड़ा था, हाँ पड़ा था. कि if you think you are that great, then please prove it. Just by carrying a resume into the MBA, you are just one amongst many.
So it was a reality check.
Problem I've seen over time that CAs do suffer from.
Yeah.
You don't realize because we are not taught to look around us. When competition is not about only doing well, right? Competition is also about knowing who's around you, what the world around you looks like. तो जब तक
That is indeed a
सीखेगा नहीं,
perspective.
पता कैसे चलेगा?
बिल्कुल.
I was watching a series on, and there was an amazing dialogue there, which actually hit me hard. And this is especially when you guys come competing about engineers, where this fellow gives this dialogue that, boss, I was surely born yesterday, but I did spend all night doing up my homework. And that's what engineers will start learning things fast, because this is people, everybody who stopped their cat, सबके IQ levels आसमानी है. You think that you're a chartered accountant, you understand corporate finance better, you have an edge, but they will start catching up fast. And that's how competition is. You think you build a great product, great, but someone is out there on your heels, you have to constantly keep excelling.
Okay. So talking about IQ, that we understand. So was there any help that your EQ provided you when you were dealing with the pressure while doing CA and while you were at your B school? Were there any pressures there?
EQ learning came a lot during the B school, rather,
Okay.
because that's where again you're not working alone.
Okay.
So where you are now sitting in group projects where everybody has different capabilities, someone is smarter than you, someone is not, someone is good at imagining, someone is very good at executing, and you have to ensure that the group, and it's not only you, everybody in the group has to ensure that we all move together.
Okay.
A lot of your EQ building, especially what is relevant from a work experience and corporate careers perspective, comes there. Again, that's how the real world works, right? You're in a corporate, you're in a team. If I'm, say, drafting a marketing campaign for Briefcase, there's someone who's handling PR, there's someone who's handling the creative, there's someone who's coming up with the copy, and everybody has to be made to work together.
Right.
So that level of preparation at CA level, itna hota nahi hai. At least mera nahi hua tha, because again, small firm, so aisa nahi hai ki there's a team of 15 who's doing one audit and you have to manage. It was like the biggest team size for any audit was 2 or 3, so usme to sab chal jata hai.
Okay.
But yeah, a larger firm will probably give you that exposure. I had not.
Okay.
So that's what I learned at B school.
What was your journey at your, the Bank of America-Merrill Lynch? How was your journey there? What learnings were there that, made you get into the world of entrepreneurship later on? And how were you able to, pave your way in that firm, in that big company out there?
Fabulous experience. It was my first job. I was lucky that I had good bosses. My journey at Merrill was a fabulous journey for 3 reasons. The first one, yes, I was surrounded by the right set of people. So for people who, you guys who are not aware, so my co-founder at Briefcase, Sohit, was a year senior to me at IIM Bangalore, a year senior to me at Merrill.
Okay.
And best of friends, and not only him, but a few others as well. And a great set of bosses. Something that I would really want to emphasize here on, I mean, a lot of things in life are about right place and right time. And that applies here as well. But also a third factor, which is often underestimated, is the right mentor stroke boss. Where if you can find within the organization someone to mentor you, to help you navigate your move up, it's a huge advantage. So for me, it was great so that was one. The other good thing was that from a timing perspective, 2006 to 2008 was the time when most of the investment banks and private equity firms set up shop in India. So that made Merrill Lynch a huge, because it was the incumbent, a huge hiring ground.
Yeah.
And there was, amongst the senior staff, there was a fair bit of exit of people joining other banks and private equity firms. And that is something that gave me a huge opportunity to move up because there was a vacuum. And if you could scale up, you could be running your own transaction within a couple of years, which otherwise would generally, by the time you are allowed to run a transaction, it's 3 to 4 years or 5 years even into the job. I was running my own transactions at the end of 1.5 years.
Wow.
Because kuch tha hi nahi. So if you show the capability, why not? It takes a toll on you. There is extra effort to be put in, but there are dividends to be reaped later on, which I did. And lastly, because given what happened, the history of Merrill Lynch, the financial crisis and Merrill Lynch being acquired by Bank of America in 2000, announced 2008, executed 2009, I got to see a lot of transition. From, so even before that, I joined in 2006, and 2005 was when Merrill Lynch had increased its stake in Indian JV. It was a JV with Hemendra Kothari from 40% to 90%.
Okay.
So what was historically DSP Merrill Lynch, but more DSP and less Merrill Lynch, had now become predominantly Merrill Lynch and a little bit of DSP. So there was one transition ongoing when I joined, and another transition that starts 2009, 2010, where a hardcore investment bank now becomes a small, relatively smaller subset in a very, very large commercial bank. So it was a completely different mindset. Investment banks generally tend to think equity. Now we had to start thinking in terms of how a bank would think debt, risk, cash flows, all of that.
Correct.
In equity, one tends to think multiples.
Correct.
कि इतने में ट्रेड कर रहा है, अब इतने पे ट्रेड करेगा, ये वो. But when it comes to banks, it's all about cash flow and near-term cash flow and risk profile. And it's a very different way of thinking, but it's amazingly well-rounded when you put the two of them together, when you have to evaluate companies, when you evaluate projects. So that was a very different set of learning that came in as well. So I loved my 10 years at Merrill Lynch.
Wonderful, wonderful. So a lot of stuff I think you would have done is something that I'm also doing in currently my training. I'm working in the mergers and acquisitions department only while pursuing my articleship. So I think that is an interesting job for me right now, and it would have been very interesting for you as well. Yeah. So what really made you, incline towards starting up? Like, was it there in the back of your head since the beginning, or that mindset developed later on while you were at Bank of America?
It wasn't there at the beginning. In fact, it wasn't there for the last 3 years. I was at some point bored of investment banking. That's me by nature. I wanted to do something different. The idea came up of digital health. It's something that made sense, that broadly speaking, finance has moved from filling up all kinds of forms to carrying your bank in your pocket. So healthcare mein bhi hoga to hoga hi. And the idea of starting up sounded romantic at that time. So affair shuru kar diya.
Was it that simple? Ki matlab bas idea man kiya aur shuru kar diya, or they were
things to it? For me, it was simple. Life has been kind to me. Investment banking at Merrill Lynch allowed me to have a decent corpus where I could afford to do stunts. So I did them.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So you had that conviction that, you had that courageous and fearless spirit that, let's give it a try.
That's what I told you at the beginning. Now at least we are at an era where it won't look bad on a resume to say that I've run a startup for 5 years. Courage hota to 2007-8-9 में ही कर लिया होता है. And I have batchmates who did it, who are doing pretty well now.
Okay.
But इसीलिए तो we waited के let there be a good amount of savings in the bank so the downside is protected. फिर करेंगे. So that's how we did it.
Okay. No worries about that. So, but then you were coming from a finance background. How did the idea of, jumping into health tech? So it's a health tech industry, right? So how did the idea come up? Like, what were you thinking before doing that?
So what we do is we in simple words, the problem statement was that everybody takes care of the health, nobody takes care of the record.
Correct.
So why not have an app which can be a health locker, which simply helps you manage your family's medical records? That was the basic idea, simple problem statement and solution in 2015-16 when the conceptualizing was happening. Uh, we realized that the technology here involved, not today is a different story, but at that time was very simple technology. Koi rocket science nahi hai. Anybody can replicate. We also realized that very, very large players such as Microsoft and Apple have actually dabbled in this space several times before giving up. And they still continue to walk in and walk out and watch the space very closely. So it can't be that technology is the challenge here, right? Because otherwise Microsoft and Apple would have cracked it years ago. We realized it's actually a marketeer's challenge. So because it's for someone to hand over medical records to an app, there is a very large amount of trust that has to be played. It's not कि कोई मांगेगा और उसे मिल जाएगा. And therefore a lot of last mile marketing where you are talking to individuals, the game has to be played differently. So we like, it looks challenging, something that why not take it up? And we did it. There was a gap in the market. The gap exists even today. Although thanks to the government, very soon all of this will become a thing of the past, because the government itself is working heavily on in the background to digitize medical records and get healthcare digital the way they've got finance. How they brought digital finance to the common man through UPI, they're going to do the same thing to medical records. They're going to take digital medical records to the common man using what they call the ABDM.
So is that a matter of concern for your startup, or it will be a mutual?
We are actually playing that game. So we are India's first health locker to be ABDM compliant. And we are also now a consent manager, like a UPI consent manager, Google Pay and a Phone Pay. We are also that as well. So we are actually working very closely with the government to ensure that we are up to speed on what they want.
Okay. So could you share a bit more about Briefcase, the technology that you use behind it? And I was looking at your website. There is some division that for users and for doctors. So what is the differentiation? How is the segregation done? Yeah.
So what we are aiming to do is build an ecosystem. So what we learned about digital records, it's unfortunate that people on an average spend anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to get a selfie right.
Yeah.
But they will not, or to create a good Instagram post, for example. But they will not spend 30 seconds to take the photograph of a prescription of their mother, which could actually be something far more useful or sometimes life-saving as well. That is market reality for me as a businessman. So the idea was, then why not capture that prescription at source? Create software which a doctor can use. You have a software which patients can use. The two talk to each other. So as that prescription gets created. So that was the idea of creating Briefcase Connect. So we have Briefcase, which a patient can use, Briefcase Connect, which is a clinic management suite for doctors, and the two are connected. I don't know when did you see the website, because we launched a new website day before.
Okay, I saw the new one only. Yeah.
Great. So now what the focus is around the ABDM, which is actually going to do this work of linking everybody.
Okay.
So this whole business of having an ecosystem so that you could have the records created in the ecosystem actually goes out of the window.
Okay.
What the government is doing is how in UPI, using your Phone Pay and Google Pay and Paytm, you are actually consenting to your money moving from point A to point B.
Correct.
You will now be able to do exactly the same thing with your medical records. Where if your doctor sitting in Hinduja Hospital wants to see some record which is lying on SRL servers, either he will be able to pull it out or you will be able to send it to him if you have a consent manager, which Briefcase is going to be, or is rather now.
Okay. Understand.
So that's what the product is going to be. We are working because we actually see the future of healthcare changing thanks to ABDM. The way UPI changed fintech forever. It's
And how happy were your family members while you thought of starting up and quitting your high-paying job?
Not at all. Our family by nature is very, very conservative.
Okay.
So quitting a job like Merrill Lynch and then it was something of a shock.
Yeah.
But okay.
No, so coming from a business family, अगर आपने कुछ traditional किया होता तो हो सकता है समझ आता जिसे proper लाला type
Definitely,
धंधा कहते हैं. But getting
definitely.
into tech side of it, digital
तो वैसे
side
भी
of
किसी
it,
को समझ में नहीं आ रहा था. And my
exactly.
parents weren't tech savvy at all.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even have smartphones.
Okay. Okay.
So the phones they used were your Nokia type 13310 type, where a phone is meant to be a phone and nothing other than that.
Yeah. So, but I think for all of us, we can take this learning that, apprehension and, that criticism from family would be there. But if we are convinced enough about the idea, if we are convinced about our venture, I think we can take it forward and do pretty good as Harsh is also doing with his own venture, right? So, yeah. Anything you would like to add here?
So it depends. It's easier said than done, because if your mother starts crying in front of you, ये सब बोलने की बात बोलना अच्छा लगता है in these in a public forum like this. But when you have to deal with a crying mother, it doesn't work.
How do you?
बाप चप्पल लेके पीछे आएगा तब पता चलेगा. ये सब it sounds very good, ये होता नहीं है in reality. In reality, you have to play it. If I can call it like a politician, yeah, I'm going to say it, where you have to approach, right, पर ठीक से speech सोचनी पड़ती है. Very simple, yeah. I mean, not everybody has that kind of an equation with their parents. I didn't. So I had to carefully decide कि ये मैं क्या story कैसे position करने वाला हूँ, so that project approve हो जाए.
Right.
तो वो सब तो करना पड़ेगा. You'll have to work around it. It's not कि मैं कर रहा हूँ ठीक से, चलो take it or leave it. That doesn't work.
So मतलब investors or market or customer से approval से पहले family approval है, which is required in some cases.
Definitely.
Got it. And
you can't be, simply put here, you can't be, you want their support, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
When things will go south, there will be ups and downs, and the last thing you want is someone nagging you at home कि मैंने तो कहा था.
Absolutely.
The last thing you want to listen to, right?
Absolutely.
So the buy-in is very important and very critical.
Right. Apart from this particular challenge, like what were the challenge setbacks, in the initial phase when you were structuring it, setting up the company, setting up the initial the employees and everything like that? What were the basic challenges and setbacks that you faced?
So the biggest challenge we faced was, and we still continue to face today, is that of this inertia around medical records.
Okay.
So when we were talking to people कि हम ये ऐसे product बनाने की सोच रहे हैं, literally everybody, and I can happily take a survey among the 16 of us here, everybody agreed that this is an idea that makes sense. I do want to do this. This makes a lot of sense. I need this product. But when it actually came to doing something about it, okay, here is an app, now register kar lo, and when we still have this service where a team can come home and scan all your medical records.
Okay.
So they कि आपको तो फोन करना है, 4 बंदे घर आ जाएंगे, आपके रिकॉर्ड स्कैन करके, that's how we'll do it. And yet people were like, अरे collate करने पड़ेंगे, and that would take a few weeks, few months, if at all. The inertia to do anything about medical record was very, very high, and that's something we underestimated. And we had to spend a lot of time, lot of effort understanding it, what it takes, smoothing out the user journey, so that inertia can be minimized. But that was probably our biggest setback or challenge, whatever you want to call it.
And then how your work experience at Merrill Lynch help you in in your startup phase, and what were the learnings that you were able to carry along with yourself while starting up?
Things about investment banking, especially in India and in an MNC investment bank, is that it follows military culture.
Okay.
कि अगर बॉस ने बोला है कि कल सुबह तक प्रेजेंटेशन चाहिए, तो कल सुबह तक प्रेजेंटेशन चाहिए. Unless you have genuinely tried and not got it, to say कि now it's 10 o'clock and I'm going home, it doesn't work. You will be on your way out very soon, before you know it. It works on military culture, orders, and there are reasons for the way that business is structured that way. Some justifiable, some non-justifiable, but that's the way it was back in 2006.
Okay.
So as they talk about the army, right, it makes you a person. It defines your character. That's what Merrill did to me.
Okay.
कि ये चीज ऐसी होनी चाहिए. Your attention to detail, because you have to be the best. You are competing. Everybody is competing for the same piece of business, be it advisory or capital markets or anything. Your work, it's that training it gives you. I would say, if anybody as advice, एक साल investment bank में काम कर लो. You may not like it as a career. It may be the worst year of your life, your long hours. But that learning, that वो जो finishing आएगी आपकी, it is something that you will carry forward to the rest of your life.
So that strength of character is really required while in your startup.
Key are, because there are days when you have to stretch nights. Right. You're multitasking so much. There is stress coming. The ability to handle it really teaches you how to handle stress. Giving your word to a client at a Merrill that this presentation will reach you by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Either the presentation reaches, or well in advance the client is made aware that we are running behind schedule. We are sorry, and it will probably come by 4 or the next morning or whatever. Give us another 24 hours or 48 hours, and which is acceptable to tell the client that. But at least you have to give advance notice. If a client follows up with you at 2 p.m. कि आपने तो 10 बोला था, अभी तक आया नहीं, unacceptable. A lot of those finishing points matter in the real world.
So that professional approach you're talking about, you can't take it casually, right? When you're working with such big clients.
You cannot take your clients casually. You can talk to them casually. You could have great relationships with them. But when it comes to delivering your work, if there is a timeline committed, you either meet the timeline or you tell the client that you'll be running behind schedule well in advance.
Correct.
Expectation management is a very huge part of business, which we are never taught in any stream of education. If your clients are expecting something out of you, if your bosses are expecting something out of you, if you cannot manage that, if you cannot temper that expectation down, if you're not going to meet it, nobody likes surprises.
Okay. So I think not all of us or not all the people who are willing to start up will get an opportunity in investment banking side, right? But would you suggest that getting some work experience in a corporate or any other company or any other firm for that matter is recommended before you start up?
Okay. Definitely.
Okay.
I would.
Okay.
Because
so directly,
if I have to draw an analogy, वो किसी भी metal को हथौड़ा मारते हैं ना, जरूरी होता है. Which is what your first job will teach you.
Right.
It will show you what the real world really looks like. Correct. So when you have to start your business and run one on your own, you know what's coming your way.
Okay.
Unless you are a tech wizard who's creating a brilliant tech product which is going to sell by itself, that's a different story.
Okay.
I don't think anybody on this forum is.
Right. And so having a team, like while running a business, having the right set of people is, I think, one of the most or the most crucial aspect of it, because we cannot do everything on our own. We cannot win this battle alone. Right. So we need the right team. So how can one build that a team that is talented, truly committed to the process?
There is no answer to that
course.
question.
Yeah,
that question can never be answered. How you do it, it depends on your requirements, your gut feel, who you're getting to interview the person, how you're interviewing, what the requirement is. It is critical, but it's a fine art, not a performing art.
Okay.
So you should know how to get the right set of interviewers. You don't have to interview everyone.
Right.
We don't at Briefcase. We don't.
Okay.
We have friends who have years of tech experience, years of marketing experience. When we are hiring, we actually use them to take the interviews.
अच्छा. Okay.
Why not? मुझे marketing नहीं आती. किसी ने PNG में 10 साल लगाए हैं, तो उसको लगाओ इंटरव्यू के लिए.
Okay. So, but then, like as you also said that your co-founder is one of your closest friends from B school and then at your workplace. So that trust is also, I think, important. Without that, we cannot move forward, right?
Trust, working styles. Yeah. Because we work together, not only as part of the same organization, but often on the same team for a single transaction. Okay. We knew what was coming, what each other's strengths were.
Okay.
So
That understanding between two co-founders is also very
always.
important. That
The
is
number of
another learning.
startups that collapse because the founders end up fighting,
Correct.
it's a long list. It's not a small list.
Correct. Correct. Final piece of advice for all the young charterpreneurs. So all of us here are, from the CA background, but have that inclination towards entrepreneurship, towards startups. So that's why we call ourselves charterpreneurs. So if any advice.
The only advice I'd give you
Yeah.
is keep your blinkers away. A mistake that I can say I also made, I can be held guilty of making, is that it's lovely to have 5-year plans and 10-year plans. In fact, every time you Google interview questions, you realize this is a very common question. And it's the worst thing to have, because life doesn't move in a straight line. Life moves like lightning. If you watched any video of lightning at like some 2 lakhs frames per second, you will realize that it moves one line, then a little here, then a little there, then a little there, then a little there. And sometimes it moves horizontal, sometimes it moves south, sometimes it does even U-turns. And that's how life really moves. You are moving a few weeks, a few months, a few years at a time. Which is not to say that if your goal is to be a partner at a McKinsey or a partner at an Ernst & Young, it's a good goal to have. But after every few moments of time, and you can decide what those moments are, you need to again evaluate, are you on the goal? Do you even want the goal? Is there something else available that is more fun? We stop doing that. You assume that mere ko to partner banna hai, so I just have to start with analyst, then move to associate, then move to senior manager, then move to principal, then move to what? It doesn't have to go that way. You could go outside and come back in. Or something else. Or some other department maybe. Maybe partner there, but partner somewhere else. So constantly keep evaluating what your options are. What are the options around you that are developing? Smarter people who did that back in 2013, 14, 15, and who must have joined a Nykaa and a Paytm today, have done brilliantly well. Now, it's not to say that there were others who went to Urban Ladder as well, and many such stories. So it cuts both ways. But at least be constantly evaluating what your options are at every point in time.
And are you really enjoying your work now, or do you think would you get bored sometime in the future and you would want to switch to something else?
I'm enjoying it today.
Okay.
I can't say what it will be, say 2-3 years from now.
Okay. So it's fun working at your own venture, right?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
There's so much that I've never done in my life, which I'm doing now. One question, engineers better than commerce grads? No, I wouldn't say that, right? Your degree does not define you.
Absolutely.
So you have commerce grads who are smarter than other engineers as well. In fact, the beauty of the MBA is that everybody is equal on day zero. All of you, let's say everybody has joined XLRI. So everybody's joined XLRI, right? So then all of you are equal. Everybody's managed to get in. The point is there are some subjects that they will do better. There are some subjects that you will do better. There are some skills they have learned. There are some skills you've learned. It's not that one is better than the other. That's not the way. If that's how you interpreted it, then that's not what I meant. But yes, there is a subject called quantitative methods or quants and statistics that engineers will typically tend to be better than commerce graduates because they've already studied those. You will be better at accounts and costing and corporate law. But they can catch up and so can you.
Absolutely. So and heartfelt gratitude to you for taking out time out of your schedule, and I'm sure each one of us can understand the importance of having such virtual meets that in spite of sitting in Mumbai, you can give your sense of knowledge to all of us sitting in different parts of the country. So thank you so much for coming here to enlighten us all, to guide us all. It was indeed a wonderful session, very insightful. Thank you so much.
Thanks
a lot.
Thank you.